Now, Z index. This is very important when you are designing the web pages, especially menu bar, right? When you give the menu bar, so sometimes might be you have seen that when you visit the website, the menu bar will go inside the background. It will be not able to see that. Sometime might be you have observed or not. You just check it out, or you maybe some website it will happen, but generally it will be not. So most of the website they will use the something parameter called a Z index. Okay, and this property, when you specify, this will stack order of elements. Okay, and this will be like the moment you define the Z index, the menu bar it will float on the top of the, that is the background, right? You have the background image or anything on the top of that it will come. Otherwise what happened, I'm creating a website, right? I have on the website I have some menu bar. Okay, whatever the things. Okay, and in that also about us, contact us, so many menu, and you have one slider here running. If you not define the Z index, what will happen, the moment you click the mouse over on this second button, what happen, whatever the sub element is there, sub menu is there, it will go behind this slider. So to overcome with this, we need to add the Z index property. Okay, that's why we, and how you can use, to use this you have to use Z index, then either auto or number or initial or inherit. You can give this. For figure caption, that is fig caption, the Z index must be set to 0. And for figure, the Z index value could be equal to or above 0. You can define anything. Like this we can do that, right? This is the Z index. So you can see here, right? This is the property which we have used in Z index. Okay. Next, about fixed positioning. What is the fixed positioning? The fixed positioning value is used relatively infrequent. That means it is a type of absolute positioning only. But the difference will be here, the positioning value whenever you define in relation to the viewport only. So we have seen that except this one. Okay. So it is not will be there in the relative viewport, right? It will be differently. The element with fixed positioning do not move when you scroll up or down. Obviously, as I mentioned, right? It is means of fixed. That means it is not going to be changed. So if so, there is one absolute and there is one fixed. So in absolute, you can define it depend on the their container, the next container positioning, the element. Here, the moment you define the fixed positioning, it will not move any like up or down. And this fixed position is most commonly used to ensure the navigation element or advertisement which are visible on any website. So what happened? You have seen that menu bar, right? Menu bar will be fixed. It is not going to change. Advertisement place, you can see that any website that will be having advertisement, right? So it is not going to change. It is constantly, it will be keep scrolling to the some location. So like that way, it is actually the fixed position. And how you can define the fixed position? You can see here, you can use figure and you can give the position is equal to fixed, sorry, position colon fixed, top 0, left 0. The moment you define this property in CSS, what will happen? See the result. This is the first result, right? Just I have defined this, some content is there, one image is there. Now when you scroll down the next step, you can see the image is still constant. Okay, it is on the top. It is not going to be moved from this place to another place. But in absolute, what was there? If image is here, then definitely this will be also, when you scroll down, this will also go down. But here it will be like this only. So might be you have seen some of the advertisement website also, like they will be having some advertisement will be appearing. If you scroll down also, that advertisement will be stick on the left hand side or right hand side bottom, or any location wherever they displayed. This is actually called as your fixed positioning. Next, you have floating element. What is the floating element? It's very simple. The floating element, that means the moment you move down, that also should come down. Okay, wherever it go. So it is possible to displace an element out of its position in the normal flow, but you have to use here CSS float property. Okay, an element can be floated to left or right. When an item is floated, it is moved all the way far from either left or far right of its containing block, whichever block you define, and the rest of content is reflowed around the floated element. This floated block level element must have a width specified. You have to specify the width for the floating element. If you do not do, then what will happen? It will set to the auto, which means that it implicitly will fill entire width of the containing block. So whatever you define, it will take entire width. Next, in the floating element, you have a floating with container. Okay. Floating will help to move left or right of its container, also called as container block. So the floating, when it is going to move left or right to its container, then it is called as container block. You can see in the figure, you can see here, right? The floating of the container block. You can see here, I have used some here, but now you can see here, this area I have defined for the only for the block. So containing is block I have defined. In this only the image is going to be defined. That's what this is explained here. The HTML document itself to figure move left or right to the browser window. And the example is that I'm using an article for the browser, and some article I wrote here, you can see there, and the image is floated here with the certain width. Then how you can do that? You have to use the CSS property. So I'm defining the article. I'll give some background color. Okay. I'll give some margin for the article, 5 pixel margin padding. Okay. Then again I will define for paragraph margin, and next I will define for figure. So figure is nothing is called as picture. You cannot write into the CSS that is the image picture. That is actually the CSS property is figure. Now I am going to define. What I am going to define? The border. The border should be there. Some border width I will be defined, some color. I'll give some background color for this area. You can see here there is no background in this area. Then I'm going to use some padding. Okay. I'll use the width. So as I mentioned, right, you have to define the width. Otherwise it will take the entire container block. And how the float should be there? It should be left. So it is from the left only. If you give right, it will come the image from right or center, whatever you want. And margin should be 10 pixel. So I'm defining the margin also. Like this way, your floating element to the containing block. Next, floating multiple items side by side. You have seen, right? Like some of the shopping cart, like Amazon, Flipkart, how they use several products. I want one image here, 2 here, 3 here. So this is now you have multiple items here side by side, and even in the side you have the paragraph. How you can do this? So this can be done only with help of floating. Okay. Then one of the common uses of floats is to replace multiple items side by side to the same line, and all the content in the containing block will be as a floated element here, will be flow around all the floated elements you can see here, right? You can define this. Even if you want, you can define like this way. But what happen when you define the multiple layout, right? When you are defining like this way, okay, that means multiple you are giving. What will happen when your windows get resized? That means when you are going to reduce the browser size, that means you have maximized, just reduce to the some small width. What you will find, you will be able to see that the container block it's going to be collapsed like this. You can practice, you can check this one. That means the properties has been not defined correctly. Okay. When window resizes, the content in the containing block, that means the article element, will try to fill the space that is available to the right. So you can see here, there is no space, right? So automatically it will come to down. So this will be the problem when you define multiple floats. Yes, when you are defining, then again you have to use the CSS rule that for the when windows get resizes, that means the browsers get resizes, then your default property should be defined here. You can see here. So using this clear property, you can resolve, right? So what you have to do, you have to give dot first in CSS and clear left. Okay. The moment you reduce the browser size, what happen? The figure, whatever you define, you can see here, it is going to fit 3 by 3 automatically. Depend on the browser size. So what you have to do, you have to define the class is equal to first for the figure, then only it will happen, otherwise it won't. Like this way you can do this one. What are the property we have in the clear? We have left, right, both and none. Left means the left hand is, that means it the element cannot be adjacent to and one another element. If you define right, then the right hand edge will be taken, and also that it will be not adjacent to the another element. When you defined both, left and right, any side it will take, but cannot be like it will adjacent, because when you resize the window, and when you use none, that means the element can be adjacent to the other element. Like this is this property you can use into the CSS for clear property. Next, containing floats, right? So what is the containing float? We have another problem will occur, right, with the floats. What will occur? When an element is floated with the containing block, the that contains floated content. So in this case, what will happen? The content block is essentially disappear. That means the figure. When you use floating element, so in that sometimes what happen? Your image will get disappear. You can see here, right? So I'm using here, you can see here the another image. I have used the image, but it is remaining thing is get disappeared. It's not coming properly, right? This is the disappearing your parent container. That is actually the problem for in containing floats. So in the figure containing blocks contain only the image and a figure caption element. And both of these elements are floated from left. You can see here. I'm using both the element floated to each from the left only. But what happened? Here it is not going to be display, right? So it is disappearing the parent container which I have defined, it is missing there. This means what? The both element have been removed from the normal flow, and from the browser perspective, since the figure contains no normal flow content, definitely then what will happen? The content height will become 0. That's why due to this content height is 0, that's why it is not displayed the container completely. And the best solution for problem, we have to use here overflow property. This is the example. You can apply this CSS in your practice and you can see what is happening. So I'm defining for the figure image, figure caption. Yes, I have defined. I have defined here figure, okay, property, and I have given the clear also. The moment you will define, you will notice this area particular, it will get shrunk. That means it will down to the 0. That means there is no size and you will be not able to see the remaining thing. That is the problem. So how to resolve this? To resolve this, you have to use the property as a overflow in the figure. Right? You can see here I have not used here any overflow property. The moment if you use overflow property, now you can see that clearly this screen is, that means the container block, the contain everything with the background color, it is getting appeared. This is the benefit, and this how you can solve the problem when the container element is happening like this way. Now overflow and hiding the element. Sometimes we want to the over hide the elements. Okay, most common design task with the CSS to place two elements on the top of each other and separately hide and display. That means one will hide, another will display, another will hide, first one display. So this positioning is important for both tasks. Okay, you can see here. You have seen that most of the some of the picture, right, in the especially shopping cart, right? When you new product arrives, automatically there it will be label mark that is new, right? When after certain days you will see that there is nothing is there, right? How you can do that? It's getting hidden. That means the banner need to be get added on that, and it should be get hidden also. How you can use? Yes, we can use the same way. Define the figure, that is the HTML code. Define some image, give some figure caption, take image source because we need this label, define that one. But when you take the image, and you have to must define the CSS property, because if you not define, what happen, another image called new, it will appear here. Okay, so you have to define the CSS. That means the positioning of the particular new image, right? That means you are going to overlay the image. Then what you have to do in the CSS, you have to define overlaid. Position is absolute because you are going to do the absolute positioning. So top 10 pixel and left 10 pixel. Okay, from top and left 10 pixel is there. This is your banner. And remaining this area is actually transparent area. Okay. Now you can add any image. If suppose if you use display none, that means it will hide the over image. This one it will get hidden. So hide display none, right? So this is actually you can use in the CSS also overlaid hide, how we have used here. So this is the using of the display property. And as I mentioned, there is a two property. That means one is the display, one is display is happening, and one is the visibility property. So two property we have here. So display property, it take an item out of flow. Okay, the element no longer exists. Okay, when you use visibility properties, that means it will hide the element, but the space of the particular element, that it will be remains, it will be there, exist. Okay, that is the two different way to hide the element. You can see here I'm using the figure, I've given display auto, right? So the moment you define the display property auto, that means it will display automatically. The moment if you give display none, you can see that what happened, this complete section of the image, that is figure, has gone. Only the text is getting appeared. If you define figure remaining thing all display auto, and the moment if you give visibility hidden, that means the image what you have used here, that will get hidden over there. So it is also possible to make these properties by using hover and pseudo class. Okay, how you can do that? You can see the further code. right? I have used a figure caption with the thumbnail class. Some image I have use the figure caption and define some class for pop-up, right? Another image, some paragraph, figure caption like this. Now when pop-up, what is the pop-up? That means the moment you click on this image, what happened? That image should come with the pop-up, right? Might be you have seen some of the gallery, right? When you click, it will go up, right? So how we will define? We have to define the css dot pop-up. That means in figure caption we have the pop-up, padding, background, position. Now you have to add drop shadow frame. This will be used especially into the when you are going to use css3 responsive webkit hyphen box hyphen shadow. Okay, and some property you define it, value you define, same moj box shadow you define this one, and you give the visibility hidden. The moment you open the website, it will be like this way, and the moment you click, the visibility will appear. So that's why, and next I'm using here the figure caption hover. When mouse hover, that means mouse you keep on this image, the it will display visibility will be visible. So this how you can change the display property using the hover.